Although I'm meant to talk about the year ahead, I can't start without saying some thank yous. Thank you to a dedicated and engaged president. Darren Baxter has made a tremendous contribution. I want to thank the members of the outgoing council. I'm very delighted that many of them are also continuing on to become members of the incoming council, which to me is an indication of how much they appreciate and value the work that's being done, because they do want to participate in seeing it through to its conclusion. And I do welcome our new council members. No volunteers function in a vacuum, and the more I become involved in the work of the society, the more I counted on the staff of the society, the senior leadership, and as well, I counted on the people at my firm. Anytime someone volunteers, typically what that means is that they're leaving people around them to help pave the way or facilitate so that they can continue in the work that they want to do. In my case, I want to thank my firm, single out in particular my paralegal Alison Clayton, my newly minted associate Jillian Lush, who was admitted to the bar last Friday, and my talented and overall wonderful associate Jennifer Curran, who's here today. And in terms of why I would acknowledge these people with the thank you as I begin, it's because I'm counting on them to do more of the same for the next year at least. My favorite moment of the past number of annual meetings has come when the people who are about to become president have told the story of how they became a lawyer themselves. So I'm going to begin today with a story. In the words of my favorite philosopher, we're all stories in the end, just make it a good one. All right, that was Doctor Who. Thank you. But he's over 2,000 years old, so he's got to know what he's talking about. My story begins in the early months of the Second World War. A 15-year-old boy, having left his parents and sisters behind in their home near London, England, is about to board a ship that will eventually dock at Pier 21. With him are hundreds of guest children, as they became known, being evacuated from the areas of England most likely to be bombed. The children, they believe they will be home in 6 months, but in fact it will be 6 years before they see their families again. In the meantime, most will live with strangers. By the time this particular boy returns home, conscripted at age 19, to help rebuild a broken city, he no longer feels English. He writes to his Canadian girlfriend every single day for a year, and when he is released, he returns to Canada with the $100 given to him. He will see his parents and sisters but a few more times during his life, and his parents will never meet his children. But he will tell his own children the stories of the family he left behind. One of the stories is about his father, who spent his life working as a managing clerk at a law firm in London. He'll say, "My father always wanted to be a lawyer, but in those days you needed money to be an apprentice, and he could never afford it." This, of course, is the story of my father, and the girl he wrote to every day is my mother. My father worked hard. He was ethical, he gave back to his community, and he cared about others. In short, he would have made a very good lawyer. But thanks to him and to a very clever mother, I got to be the family's first. I joined this profession 33 years ago at a time when women were entering private practice in any kind of numbers for the first time. I became the second ever female associate at Birchall's, then a 75-year-old firm, the first to take parental leave, and the first to negotiate working part-time. I look around me now and I am gratified to see the number of women in the room and in the profession. At the same time, we continue to lose women, particularly from private practice, in disproportionate numbers. More broadly, we are struggling to develop and retain lawyers from diverse backgrounds, to have a profession whose members reflect the community. We are a self-regulating profession and one that has been mandated to govern in the interest of the public, a public which has become increasingly diverse. As a profession, our challenge is to make legal services available to every facet of the community, new Canadians, people from a variety of races, religions, and backgrounds. The 3-year strategic plan, which Council adopted last June, requires us to be mindful of equity and access to justice in all our work. And as we've heard this morning, we are always mindful of the need to do so in a fiscally responsible manner. This year, the Society's Governance and Nominating Committee encouraged all our committees to develop a skills matrix which included geographic representation and diversity consideration in addition to hard skills. We recognize that it takes a diverse profession to serve a diverse community. And we know there's still a lot of work to do. Many of the Society's initiatives provide lawyers with the opportunity to participate. Talk Justice and the Preston's Lands Project, to name just two. Please get engaged in this work whenever and however you can. This work is positive, but we're never going to achieve our goals if we regulate and we practice law as it has been done since Confederation and before. Until recently, the profession and certainly legal regulation has changed very little. And many lawyers perceive regulation as a necessary evil at best, and sometimes simply evil. If there was a triple P approach in the past, the words might have been prescriptive, punitive, and picayune. We acknowledge the need to protect the public, but lawyers felt they were being held to a standard of perfection. They believed they would be spanked for their transgressions. In my view, this approach compounded the traditional reluctance of lawyers to admit mistakes or to seek help when they were struggling. Fortunately, we have an executive director who's consistently been attuned to the developments in the profession. Daryl heard about and began to explore a new type of regulation founded in the premise that most lawyers truly want to do a good job and provide quality service to the public, but don't necessarily know how to put the systems in place to get there. That if you do get out of the way of the lawyers and allow them to innovate, that they can and will do a better job of addressing the unmet needs of the legal system. That if you recognize the reality that lawyers no longer have a complete monopoly on legal services, you can focus on where there is truly a risk to the public. This triple P approach is regulation that is intended to be principled, proportionate, proactive. 2 years ago, at the beginning of the council term, this work was very much at the theoretical stage. Thanks to the hard work of the outgoing council, of Daryl and the Bar Society staff, we have adopted the principles and proposed the legislation that will put all of this in place. The foundation is there. We must build on it and infuse this new approach into all our work. Take, for example, the area of professional responsibility, formerly known as discipline, where we increasingly seek a rehabilitative and a restorative justice approach. Personally, I'm looking for one small sign that will tell me that this approach has reached into all aspects of society work. And Daryl knows what's coming. For me, that's the fact that right now, if you call the society after hours or when the line is busy, very quickly you will hear after the identification, if you're calling with regard to a complaint, please press 5 to be transferred to our complaint intake line. I don't know why 5. I don't want it to be 1, 5, 15, or anything else. I don't think that's the message that the public should hear when they call our society, and I don't think that's the message that lawyers should hear as they call our society. And as I said, for me, when I call the society and that's not the message I heard, and I see some nodding, I see some nods in the audience, then I will know that this proactive, principled, and proportionate approach has truly started to seep into every moment and every aspect of what we do. But this is a multifaceted undertaking. We are bound to get things wrong, and fortunately I learned early on not only that I make mistakes, but that I can admit them and the sky won't fall. Please be sure to let us know as council members if you think we're making mistakes, or even let us know, this would be radical and wonderful, if you think we're getting it right. Bear in mind that council has a responsibility to the public, but is also operating in public. Come to the meetings and access the materials online. Follow what we're doing so that we hear from you in the good times and the bad. How will the new approach affect you as the members? You've probably already seen the changes to the annual member report, and those changes will continue. Some of you will have participated into what I consider a very exciting initiative, the pilot project on the self-assessment tool. For those of you that haven't encountered it, this is a 10-element questionnaire intended to be completed by each law firm or legal entity. It is accompanied by a workbook meant to provide additional assistance, and a key element is a link to outside resources. The goal is to make continuous improvement of practice management or systems part of the DNA of all lawyers. I want to highlight that the areas where lawyers are asked to review and rate their systems include diversity, equity, and access to justice. This approach strongly accords with my own outlook. I believe the best way to protect public interests in the practice of law is to support the profession, just as Darren has said, to assist lawyers in building systems that will ensure healthy practices and healthy lives. Moving this work forward is our challenge for the coming year. And of course, as Darren has alluded to, there's another very daunting challenge. After almost 30 years, this will be Darrell's last annual meeting. A search committee has begun its work, and sometime in the next 6 months or so, the Society will have a new executive director. There are very few lawyers in this room, and I know I'm one of them, who remember time before Darrell. For many of us, he personifies the Society, whether it's what they like about it or what they really don't like about it. Darrell does not look surprised to hear me say this.
First time I had a target on my head.
I think it's been there for 30 years. I've been a small firm lawyer for most of my career, and I know just how easy it is to blame Darrell for everything from a question on the annual lawyer's report that I find annoying to the size of my bar fees and everything in between. Darrell knows that, as he's just indicated, and I think he would say his shoulders are broad enough to handle it. But I've spent the last couple of years on a very steep learning curve about legal regulation, and here's what I know. To paraphrase Churchill's quote, self-governance is the worst form of lawyer governance except for all the others. That Canada remains one of the few states where lawyers are truly self-governing, and that's something we cannot take for granted. That outside scrutiny of whether we can govern ourselves in the interest of the public will only grow stronger. And if we are to adapt to a world that no longer puts professionals on a pedestal, we need people who will drag, cajole, persuade, and push us into adapting. You can disagree with Darrell's conclusions, but you cannot question that he is always focused on moving us forward. Plane rides for him are but another opportunity to contemplate the really big philosophical questions on regulations. And if he wanted to, he could spend his life on a plane, because regulators throughout North America and even beyond want to hear what Nova Scotia is doing. Thanks to Darrell, we have been the first Canadian Law Society to undertake PPP reform. Thanks in no small part to Darrell's interactions with our counterparts in other provinces, we are not alone in this work, and it's a very exciting time. A wiser man even than Dr. Who has said, no prophet is accepted in his hometown. And when I see the accolades and excitement that follows Darrell as he visits other provinces, Darrell may have reason to believe he is taken for granted here. But those of us who have worked closely with him respect and value his dedication, his determination, and the strength of his vision. During the past year in particular, I've seen many examples of his professionalism, his sense of humor, and his kindness. We do owe him our thanks and our appreciation, and I know I'm going to find it very difficult to see him go. But I know him well enough to realize that until his last day with us, he will give us everything he has. So the year ahead will be one of challenge and change. We will continue our voyage into unfamiliar waters with a destination we don't yet fully comprehend, but we accept that this is necessary, and I welcome all of you along on the journey. Thank you very much.
So as part of our practice at the Society, council members wear a pin that's an insignia of, or that is our insignia. And there is a, I'll say, special enhanced version with gold on it for the president. And you are soon to be the president. Julia assumes the office of president at the conclusion of today's meeting, which I just might adjourn rather than concluding.
Which would be fine. That would be fine. That would be fine. Thank you very much. And it's special because it doesn't have a pin in it, so it doesn't even put a hole in my blazer.
You will wear it proudly.
I will wear it proudly, of course.